we are right now in Nepal.
I've always believed that entrepreneurs are born. Most of the thing, I must tell you, in my life has happened because I was at the right place at the right time with the right person, and I had the courage to make sure that happens.
Hi everyone, welcome to the special presentation of The Strait. I am Anuj Thapa, a journalist at The Strait. I recently took a trip to my country Nepal. It was a vacation for me, spending time with my family, friends, riding a motorbike on crowded street.
Day 22nd in Nepal.
It was a fun trip. Besides spending time with my family, there was an assignment for me to do, which was telling a story about the only billionaire of Nepal. You might be wondering, what, really? Yes, you heard it right. The country with 27 million people whose per capita income is just above $1,000 has a billionaire. I really wanted to know how this man became so successful and what he has to say to young entrepreneurs. For this, I went to his headquarters in the capital city, Kathmandu. At the age of 18, he had to jump into family business. Now, at the age of 64, he is the only billionaire of Nepal. Yes, we are right now in Nepal, and we are going to talk to Mr. Binod Chaudhary, the wealthiest person in this Himalayan country. According to Forbes magazine, his net worth is more than $1.7 billion. He is currently ranked at 1,349 in the list. He is the president of the company Chaudhary Group, which has more than 7,000 people under its wing in more than a dozen countries, including America, UK, South Africa, India, Singapore, and more. The Chaudhary Group has ventured into hotels, infrastructure, banking, energy, textiles, and many more. His company's best-seller product is an instant noodle YY, which he introduced in 1984. In today's exclusive interview, we are sitting down with Mr. Chaudhary to learn about his entrepreneurial skills. Mr. Chaudhary, so glad to sit down with you, and thank you so much for this time.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm so happy and proud to see a Nepalese journalist or a filmmaker doing so well in New York.
Thank you so much. So, Mr. Chaudhary, needless to say, you are a successful entrepreneur, and you are often invited to international schools, especially business schools, to share your knowledge. But the interesting part is you are often heard saying that business schools don't produce entrepreneurs. So would you mind elaborating more on that? Are you like against business schools?
No, not at all, not at all. And I have deep respects for all schools, not only business school. And it's true that I personally don't believe that the business schools, no matter how well they are, well known, necessarily will have the capacity of producing an entrepreneur. I've always believed that entrepreneurs are born. Okay. A business school, if you're lucky and if the business school is good and you get the opportunity of going there, it can polish up. It can polish you. You know, it's like the uncut diamond. Okay. It comes from the mines of the diamond, you know.
Right.
Okay, no matter how fine a jeweler you are, you can only cut and polish it better, but you can't build it, you can't create a diamond. Same thing goes about a business school. The entrepreneurship is something, it's way beyond managing resources. Entrepreneurial journey is seeing something which ordinary eyes can't see. It's entrepreneurship is all about tremendous amount of courage, taking risks, okay? And entrepreneurship is not necessarily confined or is a hostage of somebody else's technical reporting or research documents.
Right.
The research comes from within. That's what, I mean, you read the stories about many of the successful people since generations. okay, or even now.
Right, right.
Even the new breed of billionaires or successful, newsmakers in the field of business, you will be interested. It will be very interesting to find the background.
But when you talk about this thing about entrepreneurial skill, you don't have to go to business school, stuff like that. How do deans of those schools react?
I think they were, of course. when I made that statement at the Oxford once.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, and at the Sides School, Sides Business School in Oxford, the dean was sitting there, and with the obviously a huge crowd of students. And when I started saying that, he looked at me, and he was obviously, he probably asked himself a question: who have I invited here? Have I done the right thing? What is it? But then when I started explaining the logic and rationale behind what I said, okay, I think he was very supportive of that statement. He did not deny it.
Right.
Okay, because it's a fact. It's a well-established fact. Successful entrepreneurs don't have to go to a business school. Or most of the successful entrepreneurs worldwide have not gone to a top business school.
Right.
You look at this is a history.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that there is anything wrong in going there.
Right, right.
I've already said that, a good business school teaches you to think systematically. They teaches you to think in a very structured manner, makes you disciplined, gives you a very wide perspective about what is happening in the world. Okay, makes you meet like-minded people, good people, successful people, ambitious people. So the knowledge sharing is of immense value. I myself, I went to, I think it must have been about 15 years now.
Right.
I decided that I want to go and see how it is like, and finally I signed up for a executive, education program at the Wharton.
Right.
Okay, for 3 weeks I was going there back once again like a student with my bag of books and all,
Did you learn something new?
No, of course, no. I think it was all about sharing of experiences.
Right,
there were
right.
people like me and from different parts of the world. How does the same person from a different environment, from a different business environment, who's posed with different set of enabling issues or challenges, look at the problem?
Right.
Okay, and it's very, very interesting. It's very interesting that everybody wants to get there. Okay, the ultimate destination is same,
Right.
but everybody chooses a different path.
Right.
So what are these different paths? I think this is what makes the whole discussion much more interesting, the journey.
The journey, right. So, Mr. Chaudhary, I want to bring you back to 1980s when you introduced this instant noodle called YY in Nepal, which is the most successful venture in Nepal, maybe India, Korea, I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but that's what I feel. And today YY is the most famous Nepalese export to, it's sold in 36 countries. It has a market share of around 28% in India, 53% in Nepal. Now, I just want to know, how did you come up with the idea of instant noodles in that era when nobody was eating instant noodles?
No, I think to be fair and to be honest, and I've said this many times in the past, the real concept and the feasibility study of producing YY was born on a baggage belt of Tribhuvan International Airport.
I've read it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because one day, we were already in the wheat flour milling business. I was looking for a product which is based on wheat, because we had a lot of surplus wheat flour to consume. Our biscuit factory was not big enough to consume everything we produced. So I was looking for something, and I used to go to Japan and Korea and Hong Kong very often those days. And I think it was more or less around the same time where I just entered the business, full of enthusiasm, full of passion, eyes very sharp, looking around for things all the time, looking around, sniffing for opportunities. So, I noticed that a particular type of same cartons are floating on the baggage belt, one after the other.
Right.
Then I asked myself, what is it? It can't be a coincidence that everybody is bringing the same thing.
Right.
And then I went closer and I looked at the carton, and they were noodles, instant noodles made in Thailand.
Right.
And then I asked some of the passengers who had brought, what is this? What have you brought? They said, oh, this is instant noodle, Thai instant noodle. I said, why you don't get instant noodle here? He said, no. And even if you get some, then nowhere close to this.
Right.
Don't you know that the Nepalese are in love with this product? Everybody, look at all the cartons.
Right.
So he was actually my Ernst & Young and Price Waterhouse, you know. So he gave me that very important, vital feedback.
Right.
And then we started understanding the prospects, and then I flew to Thailand and connected with the company, and rest is history.
Right. Mr. Chaudhary, does that mean that if you want to be a...
But there is an interesting...
Okay, yeah.
There is an interesting component to it. And probably that will throw some light on your first question.
Right, right.
So it was fine. I mean, I understood that instant noodle is very good.
Right.
It could have a good potential. Okay? But how many people go to Thailand?
Yeah.
Maybe a few hundred, a few thousand.
Right.
Okay? And you need huge consumer base, right? It's a consumer product. So when I went to the Thai company which used to produce the noodle, I asked him, let's do collaboration. He said, no way, why should I go to Nepal?
Right.
Then I said, well, please, come on, at least teach me. Okay, you don't have to invest.
Right.
And then somehow I persuaded the man, the owner of that company, and he came here. And I took him around, and he went around the markets, villages, towns, and in the end he said, come on, son. He was much older than me. Please do not make the mistake of going into this business.
Do not make the mistake. Wow.
Nepal cannot be ready. There are no people. People can't afford. First of all, they don't know what noodle is. And secondly, it's an expensive product from their perspective.
Right.
You have to sell 30,000 packets a day.
Right.
So don't get swayed by seeing a few cartons on the baggage belt. Okay? But that's where my entrepreneurial instinct came into the play.
Right.
I said to myself, fine, let him say, decision is mine.
Right.
This product cannot fail.
Right. And does your father have something to do with your entrepreneurial skill or instinct?
Of course. My father, I rate him as a great entrepreneur. Because, you know, I mean, his father started as a textile merchant by bringing fabrics from India those days. It was a different world, you know, there were no roads, there were no means of transportation. Human being used to carry goods from, from India and from the border to feed into Nepal.
Right.
It was a different story. You must have seen the pictures of people carrying a vehicle.
The vehicle, yeah.
Okay, similar kind of a thing. Not even mules, you know. People used to carry. So from there he graduated to opening the first flooring and furnishing showroom of this country. He started a construction company. There is a chapter in my book.
Right.
He was part of the construction, the builder for Solti Hotel, which is
I'm
still...
coming to your book after this.
Okay. So I mean, you know, so he was a real entrepreneur.
Right.
Then he graduated from bringing in Indian goods to Japan and Korea, and he was the one who started all this.
Right.
I only followed on his path and brought in a bigger scale, and also brought in a much wider degree of diversification.
Okay. So, Mr. Chaudhary, you learned a lot from your father, but there's one major business difference you had with your father, which you mentioned in your autobiography, Making It Big. So you said, I quote, "You have to sacrifice something to gain something, my father told me. That is one piece of fatherly advice I could never accept. I want everything from life, not one thing at the cost of another." So, Mr. Chaudhary, this is so unusual for me because what I've learned, what I've read is, if you gain something, you lose something. That's part of real life or business. But you don't want to lose anything. Can you elaborate more on this?
No, I think I truly believe that I did not have time to compromise. Okay, that's what is the sum total of that statement.
Right.
I had to catch up. I was young.
Right.
My father was unwell. I had to compete with his peer group. And they were miles ahead. Okay, my ambition, my dream was big. You must have read other statement that I've always made, that I'm a small man from a small country but with big dreams.
Big dreams, yeah.
Okay, you cannot deliver big dreams by making compromises. So you have to do things. I know that there is always give and take.
Right.
There is always a trade-off.
Yeah.
But if you can handle your negotiations well, if you can handle what you want, if you are clear about what you want in your life, okay, not at the cost of losing something, you can still find a way. I believed in, I believed it then, and I believe it now, and I also would like to humbly reconfirm that my thinking was not wrong.
Mr. Chaudhary, because I've read so many successful entrepreneurs saying they have made good successful entrepreneurial journey, but if they look at their family, they didn't have time to spend quality time with their family. That was their biggest sacrifice. So how about seeing
No,
that?
I've never believed, and I do not believe even now, and I didn't believe in when I was young at the helm of affairs, of compromising or trading off one thing for the sake of the other.
Right.
Time is same.
Right.
Okay, there are different things which is very important in your life. It's not only family. Your public life is very important. Your social life is very important. Your own private life is very important.
Right.
There is a private individual in everybody's garb,
Right, right.
Okay, you may not like to, you may be a soul, you may be a loner. You may be somebody who would like to just go and sit by yourself somewhere. You may like to just go and play some music somewhere, etc., whatever. You got to find time. Life is all about balance.
Right.
I always give the example of a tent, which has 4 poles on the corners and 1 in the center. And only a pole which has same size of poles all around and a strong center pole looks beautiful and holds the crowd.
Perfect. Mr. Chaudhary, let's come to this age right now. So this is the age of instant gratification. Youngsters like us, to be very honest, we want results instantly. If we fail on something, like if we fail on one thing, we just hop into another one. So how do you see this trend?
I think that's a problem.
Is that a problem?
That's a problem. I think you have to be consistent. You have to be persistent. You cannot be a jumping jack.
Right.
You cannot be a butterfly. I have this problem occasionally with my own sons. Not so much now because they have matured and they have become far more responsible in running their respective businesses. But during their early stages, patience used to be a problem. Okay, you're going to face problems, you're going to face blockades, you're going to face impediments. People will be around creating obstacles and helping you to solve.
Right.
This world is a cutthroat competition, particularly in a smaller environment, in emerging economies.
Right.
Okay? People don't realize that there is enough for everybody. People think that if you're doing well, it is at my cost, which is not the thing, which is not the reality. So people do not have the patience as well as determination and the will that fine, I've had problems, but I'm going to find a solution.
Right.
Because that's what makes your will much more stronger. And you have an advantage because you've gained that much of experience, even when you've not been able to sort of deliver what you wanted. It's easier than starting something new again.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Right.
So I think that is an issue, but that doesn't mean the world is very dynamic here. Okay? It is quite possible that you only have 24 hours in a day.
Right.
Okay, or you may have only X amount of money in your pocket and you want to start a venture. Okay? While going forward, you've embarked on a particular idea. That's taking time, but something far more brighter, some far more interesting comes on your way. Okay? There's no harm.
Okay.
There's no harm in following that because that will give you probably a better return, but you have to be sure that that is a better idea.
Okay, interesting. Mr. Chaudhary, let's come to your company now. Your company has gone abroad and it has gone more than dozens of countries, including America. That's where my office is. So how is your company penetrating in the American market?
Well, we, you know that we have a hotel, 400 room, Radisson at the JFK.
Okay.
Okay, so I mean, you know, I always had a dream that I must do something. If I have to do something, it must be New York.
Right.
Okay, that's where the whole world wants to be ultimately.
Right.
And so I tried to look at many opportunities, you know, must have been about 15 years back. And then later on concluded that perhaps the hotel is the right way. That's something which we know.
Right.
And it's also, and the American hotel industry is highly structured.
Meaning?
There are American flags, okay, companies like Hyatt to IHGs to, you know, Accor to all of them, they are the one, they fill in the hotels. They make a pretty good buck out of it. and I think it's a very well developed industry.
Right.
So we landed up making that investment. It's doing extremely well. We are very happy. But, you know, fact of life is that it takes us 16 hours to go to New York.
Right.
So later on we concluded that perhaps we are better off focusing more closely in a periphery of 7-8 hours maximum. Because there is nothing, you may argue, you can always say that, okay, you can reach out through internet and Skype and whatever. You know, business is all about feeling it personally and physically. Okay, so I love my investment there. I like it. New York is a great city, one of the most vibrant city. I love going there a couple of times in a year. Just to see people walking on the Manhattan streets gives you energy. You know,
right. I totally agree with you. Yeah. Because I work in Manhattan, the vibe is totally different. Yeah, so fast-paced. Anyway, so now we are almost at the end of this interview, and if you had to give some advice to young entrepreneurs of this generation, what advice you want to give out to them?
You know, first of all, and this is again something which I've shared many times to young entrepreneurs and students, there could not have been a better time to be born as a young man or a woman. Okay? Forbes had written it, and they continue to repeat it, that to be 30 or less than 30 is a huge advantage in today's world. And that is demonstrated by seeing the list of the Forbes new let's say, nominees to the list of the Forbes every year.
Right.
There is a large chunk of new entrepreneurs who make it big. And they are less than 30. Why? Because today's world is all about technology.
True.
And your generation, the generation is so sharp in identifying an opportunity, the gap between what exists and what is needed, and connecting between the two. All the major companies, the tech companies, so to speak, fintech companies, so to speak, it's all about one little bright idea and the zeal and commitment of the person to implement it. Doesn't matter whether it's Ukraine, like the place where WhatsApp was born, or Hangzhou in China, that's where Alibaba was born, okay, or for that matter, even Nepal, where YY was born. YY may not be a tech-savvy company, but still, I mean, ideas can be born anywhere.
True.
And I think today your generations are well educated. They are well exposed to this little gadget which has the whole world in it. Okay, they know exactly what is happening in the world. They are very fast to grab. Okay, so and they don't need capital.
Right.
The venture capital world has become very vibrant. They are all the time looking for ideas. There are incubators, there are accelerators, they are always looking for people with bright ideas. What you need is ability to come out with one fine idea and demonstrate that you have the will to execute it.
Right.
Then everything, whole world will follow you.
Right.
So isn't it the best time to be born as a young man or a woman?
I hope so. And what are the mistakes that young entrepreneurs should avoid making?
I think to be a copycat doesn't work in today's world. It's very short-lived. I think you've got to have something. The world, on one hand, I gave you the example that it's become, I mean, you know, all the doors of the world are open for you, no matter where you're born. But same times, that also applies that the statement can be interpreted that you have to today compete with the whole world. Okay, so you cannot just by copying, you can't go too far. Right. You've got to have something new about what you are trying to do, A. B, today's world is very smart because of technology again, because of transparency, because of the internet. You cannot fool people. Okay, you cannot cheat people for too long. If you try to cheat also, you will get caught. Okay, so you've got to have a sincerity of purpose. You've got to believe in what you're doing. And you've got to be able to stand out any scrutiny, any form of a scrutiny that your technology, your IPR, your product, your brand, your pricing, and the value for money that you promise that you are going to deliver is indeed being delivered. It's all about promise. So I think there is no shortcut. The world is waiting for you to come out with a new idea. It's amazing, you know, how the world is transforming. Thanks to the world of artificial intelligence, you will see many more changes every day. The way we have done business traditionally is going to be dramatically different in coming times. Okay? Capital will follow you instead of you changing the capital. Okay? The infrastructure times are gone when you need a huge sort of infrastructure to be a big player in the marketplace. There are people like Alibaba and Amazon who have no warehouses or manufacturing establishments. It's just an idea.
True.
Okay? I mean, I'll give you an example, very simple. A young man in Croatia who is now my partner, okay, he bought the rights of producing energy drink under the brands of MTV. MTV is a very well-known brand.
Right.
Okay, he was working for a department store. Okay, he adds a white label sourcing manager. You know what level sourcing manager. So he had his linkages of where to get a product made. So he had on one hand the rights, on the other hand the linkages to get the products made. Within a period of less than 1 year time, he launched that product in 27 countries in the world. 27 countries in the world. And now we are happy and I'm proud. I met him when I was speaking to a group of entrepreneurs in Croatia, in Zagreb. You know, he wanted us to join him, which we have done. Okay, and we are going to take it to all over the world in a very short period of time. So what do you call it?
Right, true.
It's all about, you know, believing in your idea. I always use the term, the power of idea.
Right. And Mr. Chaudhary, what is the importance of networking in entrepreneurship or business, and how do you improve your networking skill? When you were too young, there was no social media. You know, now we have social media. It's really easy to network, but still people can't network with people. How do you improve it?
The network is the key. Even in our time, probably one of the reasons why I'm there, I was able to accomplish what I have done in my own humble way was because of my networking skills. Okay, I was the president of the Leo Club, whatever small organization it may have been at the age of 16, 17. Then I started sort of networking with the YPOs. I was the only member of the YPO in this country. Then I became the federation president, which took me to all over the world in the process of my networking, etc., etc., etc. So it's not about social media. It's about finding the right kind of a opportunity to be in the right place and the right time.
But how do you find it?
You have to, this is where you got to use your imagination. Which organization to work with, who are the people to hang around with, what are the magazines or media to read, what to take out from those media and how to apply that in your own, you know, scheme of things. It was there even in our time. Of course, today things have become far more easier. I've already conceded, but most of the thing, I must tell you, in my life has happened because I was at the right place at the right time with the right person. on one hand. On the other hand, I had the courage to make sure that happens.
Right.
Or I had the, first of all, I had the entrepreneurial skill to pick up an idea and to blend it with the situation where I was in, and the commitment to implement it without changing course. I can give several examples, and my book talks about it.
Right, it does, definitely does. Now, the last question for this interview. If a 64-year-old Binod Chaudhary had an opportunity to talk to 18-year-old Binod Chaudhary, what would he say to him?
Probably I would tell him that, listen, we belong to an era where to make a call to Japan, I had to go to the telecom office in my country and book a call and wait there for 8 hours. And shout, literally shout, to complete a 2 minutes conversation. Today the whole world is in your hand. No matter where you are, it hardly matters. We used to go to a public library to access information. Any information you want is right here. It's just that you must have the imagination, you must have the clarity of what you want. So if I could become, from the streets of Kathmandu, Forbes 1364 billionaire, you have the opportunity to be the number one. That will be my message to him.
It was really a pleasure talking to you, Mr. Chaudhary. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, all the best, and it was a pleasure too, and I hope that many of your audience will see that there is no monopoly of larger economies in the world. Smaller countries sometimes give surprising opportunities. My own country has come through a much bigger transformation. We've gone through an era of 25 years or close to 30 years of perpetual political transition, and today I think the country is ready to open doors to welcome entrepreneurs, investors to come and take advantage of this unique environment, which probably is all set to go to take a quantum jump. All the best.